Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host. I'm a filmmaker on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode, I pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on streaming. I pick a favourite film from that topic and battle it out against a guest to decide which film would become the greatest film of all time. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Please enjoy part 2. Hello guys, welcome to part 2 of the podcast, where we are talking Leonardo DiCaprio films. And of course, you already know this is the part where we have a look at your Instagram responses from the previous episode. And that previous episode, I can tell you, was on, but you must already know, you've clearly listened to it already, is on Darren Aronofsky films. And Matt from the Matt and Mark movie show, you'll be hearing his name again later, went for The Wrestler. Sam from One of Us is Bored went with The Whale, which was deeply uncomfortable for her, apparently. The Meandering Movie Podcast went with The Wrestler. Christina and Mac from the World of Horror podcast went with, yep, you guessed it, The Wrestler. And the Movie Boners, Jake went for The Wrestler and Dustin went for Requiem for a Dream. Yeah, that's everyone. Liz, I'm intrigued. What is your Darren Aronofsky choice for you?
Sure. If I have to pick one,
if you have to,
I'm going to go with Black Swan.
Okay,
I feel like that one's like kind of a classic for me, just based on like the time I grew up. So
yeah, that was Tommy's choice as well for the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So it was Black Swan versus Requiem for a Dream.
Ooh.
Black Swan won. Yeah, it's really, definitely in his top 2, I think, for me.
For sure.
So it is my choice then, guys, for Leonardo DiCaprio movies. This was quite a difficult one for me because there was quite a lot. Obviously, we weren't going to talk about Inception or Catch Me If You Can.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't going to go for them because we've already covered those. So it was difficult for me.
There are so many good DiCaprio movies.
Other ones in contention was The Wolf of Wall Street. My brother loves that film for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Very good, great performance.
Really similar cast to the one that we did.
The Revenant, I think, is a really beautiful movie as well. Certainly if I went for that directing score, it would be pretty high. He won his Oscar for that one and really suffered for it. For sure. Django Unchained, I really wanted to pick that one as well. Because one, obviously I love Tarantino films and his performance in that is just fantastic. But you can't really call it a DiCaprio movie because he's not really in the first hour. He's only really in that middle section and then he's not in it for the last half an hour for reasons I won't spoil, but you can probably guess. Again, the other one we've covered is The Departed as well. Another great one from him.
The Departed.
The Departed, yeah. Gangs of New York is another favorite as well. But again, it's not a favorite because of him. It's more Daniel Day-Lewis. And of course, Liz, you've covered, I think, Shutter Island on your podcast.
Yeah. Which was a great performance from DiCaprio.
Yeah. But ultimately, I went with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, mainly because I feel like this is such a sort of challenging role for him. Not in terms of his other like Tarantino role as Calvin Candy, who is an outright, despicable character, and he's loving playing that character. But for this, he is playing a sort of dying movie star in the late 60s, 1969, and he is not a dying movie star. He has always been A-list. He doesn't do TV like this character does. He had a great, his character in this plays Rick Dalton, and he stars in Bounty Law, and that I can't remember how many seasons that ran for. Obviously, it's a fictional TV show. Obviously, this is based on sort of some real events, but DiCaprio's character Rick Dalton and Brad Pitt's character Cliff Booth are completely fictional. You got Sharon Tate in there, obviously very real. But this TV show Bounty Law ends, and he does like these guest spots on all these other TV shows as heavies or bad guys, and his career is going down the toilet. So I feel like it's a really interesting performance from DiCaprio trying to portray that when he doesn't really have his own personal experience to cling on to work with. Because I feel like for me, he's always been A-list. He's never really had a dip. And you compare that to Black Swan, and in the previous podcast, we were talking about Winona Ryder, and in that film, Winona Ryder's character used to be like the top ballet dancer in that company, and then Natalie Portman comes through and Winona Ryder gets pushed aside, a little bit like her own career in Winona Ryder. Tommy was talking about in the 90s, like when Winona Ryder was in everything, and then around this time she wasn't really in much.
It was like the new shiny thing came up and replaced her.
Yeah, so Winona Ryder, I feel like it was perfectly cast, whereas with, not to say DiCaprio is not perfectly cast, I think he still is, but I feel like this is just a really sort of challenging role for him. The fact that he is the leading man in this, but he's not playing a leading man character. Yeah. And it's more like Brad Pitt and DiCaprio kind of working off each other, which is kind of the real great chemistry that's going on in this film. So it's just a really, really interesting watching DiCaprio in this role. Yeah. So that's why I chose Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, really.
Great choice.
Good. Encouraging signs. I was worried. So what happens in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Well, I guess it's kind of difficult to explain because it's very much sort of a hangout movie in a way. But as I always do, I'll go to IMDb and see what they say. And it states, as Hollywood's golden age is winding down during the summer of 1969, television actor Rick Dalton and his stunt double Cliff Booth endeavor to achieve lasting success in Hollywood while meeting several colorful characters along the way. Yeah, so it doesn't really add much to what I've already just said. But there we go. So I'm very intrigued. Initial reactions from you, Liz. What did you make of this one?
Yeah, so I'm not a Tarantino fan. That's like not a surprise. And this is not like something that I would be like, oh, like, let me go watch this. But a couple things I will say, the acting was fantastic. The story, I had no idea where it was going. Like throughout the entire film, I was like, okay, like what's going on? And we're like most of the way done with the film and like nothing had happened. And I was like, what's going on? And I think the cinematography was really cool. They did a really good job. And I know Tarantino's kind of known for doing some artsy stuff. So yeah, it had some really good parts. Not my favorite movie, and I'm probably like not watching it again anytime soon, but I can appreciate the artistry. So
yeah, I really do like this film. It's not my favorite Tarantino. I am a Tarantino fan. It's not my favorite by any means. I think what's interesting as well is that Tarantino has recently come out and saying that in a recent quote that Kill Bill he was born to make, Inglourious Bastards was his masterpiece, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is his favorite. So I think Tarantino is a guy that's like really, like his memory is insane. Like, because obviously I think he was only like 5 or 6 years old, maybe a bit older, when he was experiencing LA in 1969, and yet he can remember all these TV shows and what was on the radio at this time. That's why you hear like all these radio soundtracks when they're in the car and stuff. he knew what was playing at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And his memory is insane. A lot like his film knowledge as well, which is just crazy expansive. Yeah, I really like it. I do kind of like the fact that it is sort of almost a hangout movie, and there's moments of real kind of really interesting tension here, and yet there's some really sort of really laid back sequences, extended sequences just for a joke, which I find just really kind of ballsy. And I feel like not a lot of other directors would really get away with that. And they were like, yeah, you don't need this in this film. Get rid of it. But Tarantino keeps it in. I will obviously you get like the Tarantino violence as well at the end, which we'll get into it. I have opinions about that. But and also like I think when this film was announced that it was about like the Manson family killings of Sharon Tate, I think everyone was like, oh no, what's
going on?
You know, this is deeply uncomfortable. What are you doing? And you know, Margot Robbie is great. I'm a big Margot Robbie fan.
I love her.
Recently watched the Wuthering Heights trailer. Looks really freaking good. I do like Emerald Fennell. Obviously, we talked about Saltburn.
Yeah.
Anyway, going off on a tangent. Sharon Tate. So, it's interesting. I feel like the scenes that she has is really interesting to watch. I feel like you don't necessarily need Sharon Tate in this film. Really,
it's almost like a side quest.
Yeah, it feels like this film works completely if you don't even have this character in here. But I get that it is. I feel like I definitely wanted more from her. But again, as I said with The Great Gatsby, I feel like with a lot of films that we cover on the podcast, I'm like, yeah, I just want more. But
I could definitely see watching this movie. I could definitely see influence from some of Tarantino's other films. Like you have multiple storylines going on, like in Pulp Fiction. The final scene reminds me a lot of his movie Death Proof. Have you seen that one? I feel like takes his favorite elements from other movies that he's made and like expands upon them going forward with movies, which I think is really cool. And I think that's another reason why too he has this like almost like cult following fan base, is because he's not like, oh, I did that, like time to move on. He's like, oh, like that was cool, like let's do it again. And I think people like that.
Yeah. Right. Directing then. I think the first thing to say is that this film definitely doesn't feel like a product of today. It feels like this film was literally made in the 1960s, which I think is a real achievement in itself. Not just because it's shot on film. He shoots everything on film. It's certainly a format that's not dead, but there's a certain texture to this film that feels very old. And I really love that. Other scenes I really liked were like all the driving scenes in this film, like where Cliff Booth like drives home to his trailer at the back of like a drive-in theater, and Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski drive to like the Playboy Mansion, and sort of like in another movie you would just have like a few shots of them like leaving and arriving at their destination. But what Tarantino does here is he just immerses you further in this time period. You know, they're both driving really fast, and I love all the sort of the fixed cameras on the back of each car, and you see all their like hair flapping about in the wind, which looks cool. Certainly very Godard-esque. You know, the French director. You know, when Cliff's like driving, he drives sort of past this street all lit up in like one long shot just on his car, and it's just a very simple shot, and it just immerses you in the film. It doesn't need to be in there in terms of the story, but I feel like it's certainly essential for like the feel of the time period of what this film is going for. So just the whole kind of world building stuff in here is really great, and there's some really great like expansive camera shots, because you've got like Rick Dalton's apartment. His house is like right next to Sharon Tate's, and there's a shot on Rick Dalton practicing his lines in the pool, and it kind of draws all the way back to Sharon Tate in her car with Polanski.
Like getting home.
Yeah.
Just like living their lives.
Yeah. And there's a great shot as well of which is right at the start where like it's just focused on Rick Dalton's face on a poster, and it pulls right back really slowly at the back of the car. I just love little moments like that, just easing you into the movie. Yeah.
Yep.
It's all very cool.
Yeah. One of my favorite scenes, I have two that I really like. One of them is like just a complete and total for fun, like didn't need to be in the movie, but it was. The fight scene between Bruce Lee and Brad Pitt.
Oh yeah.
I thought it was such good choreography, and like you can tell they're just having so much fun. I thought it was hilarious. It meant nothing, like didn't have anything to do with the film whatsoever, but it was a good scene. And then the second one is actually the very final scene where Rick Dalton is just kind of like standing out on the street after the murder sequence. And he starts talking to the neighbor, and Sharon Tate comes on the little intercom and she's like, oh, like, would love to meet you. And he finally gets his in. He's like, I'm one pool party away from a big break. And then at the end, he finally gets it. Thought that was good.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. I feel like maybe I would have liked maybe one little scene between Rick Dalton and Sharon Tate.
Like more.
Yeah. I'll certainly talk about that aspect more in screenplay. But yeah, that was certainly an element where I feel like, I wanted more. I really liked the Lancer episode scene. It's really interesting because it's not shot in like a different aspect ratio like Bounty Law is at like right at the start of the film, where it's all kind of 4:3 box and ratio and it's black and white. But I feel like there's a slightly different look of glossiness to this scene compared to like the previous scenes.
They all look sweaty.
To the previous scenes where we've been on this set, with like DiCaprio and the little girl. But I love all the different, more expansive camera angles the sequence goes with. Plus, I love how Timothy Oliphant's character, Jim Stacy, like shoots the bad guys at the back of his, around the back of his. You know what I mean? And all the guns on show like glisten in the sun, like they're completely lined up like that for the shot. And I loved it when like Rick Dalton forgets his lines and the tracking comes back again around Timothy Oliphant, and you can hear the wheel on the camera track go, which I found was
start
brilliant.
Over.
There's no like behind the scenes shot there, which I found really interesting. So it kind of feels like sort of enhances the embarrassment for Rick further in a way, as you're sort of watching the episode as it's intended to be watched, kind of thing. Yeah, really great scene for me. And you've got like Sam Wanamaker like shouting in the background, like, "No, carry on!
Yeah, keep going! Give it to me!"
DiCaprio freaking out.
He's like, okay, you're right.
Yeah, I found that was just a really clever way of directing that from Tarantino. You go through the whole kind of tracking shot, he messes up, and they go all the way back as if you're watching it in real time. Yeah, really clever for me. The last scene where some of the Manson family come and attack Rick Dalton's house is really brutal.
Yes.
And
I literally wrote, murder scene is so violent and gory.
Yeah. And funny as well, especially from Brad Pitt's character as he's high on acid. From that cigarette. Before they arrive, like Tarantino doesn't really do much for suspense. I don't think he doesn't.
No,
really do
you had no idea that it was happening.
Yeah, there's only like a few shots where we see like their old car like slowly rolling up to the house, and Rick Dalton confronts them whilst taking a swig of margarita, and Tex puts his hand on his gun a few times. Then we have like that cool shot of the family like backlit, sort of walk by the camera, and one of them is holding like the knife, playing with it as it passes the camera. That was good. But that's about it in terms of sort of suspenseful filmmaking, I would say. And when they arrive, Cliff is like not phased at all. He's just trying to remember who these guys are from the Spawn Ranch.
He's like, who am I? Who are you?
Yeah, and it's quite funny with the dialogue. Then when it comes to the violence, it's some of the most brutal violence that Tarantino has ever done, I think, for me. Like, and then daringly mixed with humor too. Like, Cliff's dog Brandy attacks Austin Butler and Mickey Madsen, and Madsen gets like
mauled
a can of dog food straight to the face.
Yeah,
and Austin Butler gets a boot to the face quite brutally as well.
And once she gets hit with the can of dog food, she doesn't stop screaming. Like, she just continues screaming the whole time
in that whole sequence.
Yes,
the energy levels. I'm like, Jesus.
Just kept going.
Yeah, there's like only one shot of flair from Tarantino for me when like Madison Beatty, who plays Katie, jumps up into shot during one of the fights and is holding a knife, but that's about it. And like everything else doesn't need anything extra, I don't think, to look super brutal and shocking.
Yeah.
And there's a funny moment. There's funny moments too, again, where like Katie attacks Cliff and stabs him in the hip. And the camera just goes sort of up and down from Cliff's reaction to the knife that's poking out of his hip.
He's like,
what is this?
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt yet.
Yeah. This is weird.
Then it becomes incredibly violent with like Cliff bashing her head in. That in particular, I think is a bit too much and a bit gratuitous, even for Tarantino standards. And like he literally hits her on 3 different walls or in the mantelpiece. It's just like, whoa, I think that's a bit too much, I think.
Yeah.
Even for him.
I think Cliff's character is like kind of made out to be a little bit violent, because even when he meets that family for the first time and he like punches the guy before making him change the tire, he like hits him like one more time than he really needs to, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
maybe they kind of
I wasn't surprised.
Anyway, but I don't know. I guess again, it's this really dark humor.
It's shocking.
Tarantino is going for the fact that he literally just like stops and like, oh yeah, she's dead now. Okay,
yeah, she's let her go. All right,
she was dead like probably from the
after
first
number
blow.
1. Yeah.
Then later again, you have this mix of horror and humor when Mickey Madison runs through the window, making DiCaprio jump out of his skin.
He has no idea anything's happening until that point.
You know, then of course Mickey Madsen gets fried with a flamethrower, which is definitely very spectacular. Yes. That felt very Tarantino for me. I find it funny as well that the police don't ask about that. One of the bodies is burnt to a crisp. And she's in a pool. What's going on there? No one asks him about that.
Yeah.
So overall, I think that it's really kind of interesting the way Tarantino approaches this last scene, just kind of separating it from the whole Sharon Tate thing of it all. The fact that he doesn't really rely on like suspense or tension, really. It's sort of this kind of creeping dread and sort of mixing that with humor as well, and sort of really making it as horrible for the Manson members as possible. And you have that kind of hilarious like dialogue sequence that that completely breaks any sort of tension that was already established, and then the violence really hits, and you're like, whoa! It just takes you aback a little bit of like, oh my god, you know, you're not really prepared for it in a way. Yes, a really interesting approach Tarantino goes for here.
Yeah, I agree. I did not see the end coming. This was my first time watching this movie.
Yeah.
And I didn't read anything about it. I had no idea what it was about. And so shocked. Like that started happening and I was like, whoa, oh my God, what's happening? Oh my God. And then it was done. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. But that's not my favorite sequence.
Oh, okay.
I think this is certainly a sequence that people really either quite like or they really don't like. And for me, I quite like it. And it's the Swan Ranch sequence with the Manson family and Cliff Booth. And it's really kind of creepy for me. It doesn't go like the full like horror tone, but it gets close to it. For me, at least. Like when like Cliff arrives with Pussycat, Margaret Qualley's character, like the pace of the film like really slows down even further. I mean, it wasn't a pacey film to begin with, not like Baz Luhrmann's movies. You know, as Cliff is like walking down the ranch, you see a few of the hippies like come out of hiding to look at him, sort of like a Western anyway. Like you can really hear like the wind to add to this uneasy atmosphere. Like there's a few moments when like Lena Dunham and Austin Butler's characters come see him and they have like a nice little chat, which is obviously nothing sinister. But when Cliff wants to say hello to George Spahn, you know, and as he walks up to the little house where George is, like the group of hippies around him like slowly walk behind him, and it just kind of feels like it feels very unnerving to me, almost semi like zombie like from this family. And then when a lot of the girls like come out of the house and pass Cliff, you know, they give him like a dirty look and say nothing, and it even sort of slows down even further, and you have like separate shots of Dakota Fanning staring down at Cliff, and the reverse angle as well, looking down at Cliff too. Plus, like Dakota Fanning has quite a stern tone to her when she talks to everyone, and of course Cliff has this mysterious past to him. So you know, then like the tension goes up a slight notch as Cliff turns around and looks back, and you get all these like series of panning shots of all these hippies outside just staring at him glumly. You know, then in the house, like the camera takes its time looking around the house, and it's really disgusting with like a rat that's still alive in a trap, you know, so the tension just lingers the whole time, and it's just really, and you're really not sure what's going to happen up until Cliff wakes up George. So for me, it's just a great little sequence that it's just uneasy to watch, you know? I know it doesn't really come to anything, but it could have. It really could have. Tarantino really could have surprised you there, but I feel like it kind of sort of in a way prepares you for that last scene a little bit of just like, this family isn't dangerous right now.
They're unhinged.
But it just, there's an uneasy quality about all these this place and these people. And Cliff kind of sees it, but you don't feel like he's ever really in danger, but it's sort of just this precursor feeling that Tarantino is giving you that something really dark is going to happen later on. So yeah, favorite scene for me for sure.
Definitely an interesting one.
How did you feel about that scene? Did you get that uneasiness for you, or was it kind of disappointing that nothing really comes of it?
Definitely felt the uneasiness at the time watching it. I kind of thought it was frivolous. I was like, I don't really understand the point of this. Like nothing's nothing's happening. We're not getting like any further character development. Like these people, do these people even matter? Like, you know, and it's almost, honestly, it's so like separate from the main storyline up until that point that it's kind of like its own thing. You're like, okay, this is like a little side thing that Tarantino just wanted to do. We'll watch it and move on. It's not until later that because then like after that, like out of sight, out of mind, you don't really see them again until the very end.
So directing score, Liz, what are you going for?
I'm going to give him an 8.8 on this one.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I thought he did a really good job. Just like, I think you're supposed to be confused. Like throughout the film, you're supposed to be like, what? Like, what? Like, who are these? Like, why do we care? Kind of thing. And I think he did a great job keeping everything kind of like close to chest, you know, like holding on to, okay, what does this story really mean, until he was ready to like release it. And then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, okay.
There's blood everywhere.
I don't know what's happening.
For me, I'll probably go pretty high as well. I think this is, I totally understand why Tarantino says that this is kind of his favorite one. I think when he writes a screenplay, he basically writes the novel of this. But I feel like he went a step further with this film as well. Like there was whole backstories and whole like other movies and TV shows that he literally wrote for Rick Dalton. And he I think he even said on the press tour he would be literally happy just making TV episodes of Bounty Law with DiCaprio.
They should, honestly. People would watch that.
Yeah, definitely. He would be happy to do that. So I feel like this film, he was so deep into the lore and the characters with this, and you can really feel it with every frame. And this film definitely looks beautiful. It really does. It looks gorgeous with the film cinematography and done by Richardson, and in a way it's definitely like feels like Tarantino's most mature film in a way, and his more like relaxed film in terms of his directing style. Like you expect all these kind of fast cuts and big camera moves, you have that to a certain extent, but like it feels a bit more refined and a bit more mature, I would say is the word, for him. Because when you get to the violence, it's not, he's just sort of relying on the violence itself to do its thing. Whereas if you look at something like Kill Bill, like he wants his style of directing to enhance the action as well with the violence in that movie. Whereas this, he's taking a step back a little bit and sort of, and even throughout a lot of the film, like he's letting the star power of DiCaprio and Brad Pitt come through, and obviously Margot Robbie to come through, and he, in a way, he's the least influential part of Tarantino on this film is his directing in a way, and it's more the writing and just relying on the star power, which is a risk, I would say, certainly in today's market. Whereas to sell a movie, like the star is not your main pull these days. It's the concept or the IP. I know he's got his name anyway. If he's written and directed a movie, you're probably going to go see it if you're a fan of his, whatever it is. But even so, I think, a strong element of this is relying on DiCaprio and Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie. Yeah. So
he did a good job too, like giving them direction and saying like, this is where this is going. And, without that direction, they wouldn't be able to pull off what they did. So,
yeah. So I will probably go like a 9.2 for me. Yeah, I think it's not my favorite. not my favorite Tarantino, but definitely one of my favorite DiCaprio films for sure. Screenplay then. I really enjoyed the conversation Rick Dalton has with his producer guy played by Al Pacino at the start. And he basically points out that Rick Dalton's career is going downhill. Yeah. And, always being like the heavy or bad guy in these TV show episodes. So he suggests moving to Italy, starring in Italian Westerns and becoming the star and the hero again, to remind people that Rick Dalton was a big star at a time. But at the same time, like Italian Westerns or spaghetti Westerns, as they were known, are considered bad films at that time. That's why they were called spaghetti. But unless you really love spaghetti, then sure. But obviously nowadays, spaghetti Westerns are considered some of the best films ever made. So it's very sort of similar, for me anyway, to Clint Eastwood's career, as he starred in like a TV show called Rawhide, I think, and then went to Italy and starred in like the Dollars trilogy with Sergio Leone, and the rest is history with Clint Eastwood. So it certainly can work going down that route with like what Rick Dalton is going through in this movie, even though he's a fictional character. He had an incredible career, Clint Eastwood. So I love how the film sets up this situation that Rick Dalton is in a changing Hollywood. So it's just brilliantly shown to you too, with like clips from like that war film he was in, with a flamethrower, and other clips from Bounty Law. So it's just a really interesting way Tarantino sets up this character and sets up Hollywood in general for this film to play out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did a good job of pulling things together. Like everything throughout the film is seemingly random, but they always circle back to it. So even like the fight scene I mentioned earlier with Bruce Lee and Brad Pitt, it's quote unquote random and doesn't add to the film, except it does set you up for the fact that Brad Pitt knows how to fight. And he knows, like he's not just the stunt guy. There's more to him than that. And so I think like you said, it's written like a novel. Like it all circles back together. It's not linear, right? So we're kind of like jumping around a little bit. You're not really getting things like, it's not like this happened and then this happened and then this happened. It's like this happened. Oh, and by the way, like that also happened at the same time. And then like this thing happened, and it's a little bit all over the place, but it works for the story.
Yeah, I mean, it's very bold in what Tarantino is doing, because it's not really a traditional narrative at all. It doesn't have like a driving narrative pulse to it. You're just going through like, Rick Dalton and Cliff Booth's career at this time in Hollywood and just seeing how it ends up. Really, will Rick become a movie star again? And on paper you're like, I don't want to see that. but somehow he makes it just really compelling, and it's just really kind of interesting about how Hollywood was at this time period and how things were changing in the late 60s in terms of how thinking was changing with like the hippie movement and how that affected Hollywood, and the fact that, through that Rancher TV episode that he does, Sam Wanamaker wants to make him look like a hippie. He's got like the big mustache, the dark leather jacket. He doesn't want him to look like Rick Dalton. So again, as I was sort of talking about with how Tarantino was trying to sell this film, like, Rick Dalton has to sort of realize that, like, to further his career, at some stage he's got to like get rid of this Rick Dalton persona and actually just focus on acting and just focus on becoming a character. Because there's that one line when Sam Wanamaker is talking about the character, and he's just like, so how are the audience going to know that it's me?
Like, I don't want them to.
Yeah, so he's learning that fact that no, Hollywood doesn't want that anymore. Like, things are changing. So I just really find that kind of interesting in terms of, it's almost like a character study within this industry in this changing time of the late 60s, with this sort of hangout quality as well. Plus, I really do like, as I mentioned briefly, and you have as well, Liz, is I really like the confidence in the laid-back nature of this film, where you have like a long extended flashback scene that explains why Rick Dalton doesn't need him at the Lancia shoot, because Randy, Kurt Russell's character, the gaffer, won't work with Cliff Booth. So Rick asks him to like fix his aerial at his home instead. Like the flashback is basically like as you say, like a fight scene between Cliff and Bruce Lee on the set of the Green Hornet, where Bruce Lee ends up in the side of the director's car, causing a massive dent. And of course, like, Cliff gets kicked off the set, and there's, some funny lines in there. Nothing like spectacular about the fight, I don't think. Then when we come back to Cliff Booth on the roof, all he says is, fair enough. And I always chuckle a little bit at that, not because of the line as such, but the audacity to like use 10 minutes of screen time just for like a small joke.
Yeah.
It's just so good for me. Plus it just creates some more mystery around Cliff Booth's character, which can kind of certainly informs the end as well. Did he kill his wife or not on that boat? So yeah, it's just really great like character stuff for Cliff Booth in that little scene, even though, again, any other director, writer would be like, yeah, we don't need that. Cut it. Not Tarantino.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So do you reckon he killed his wife?
I don't know. He seems like a good guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was probably a freak accident.
Yeah. Also, one thing to mention as well is that one of the controversies about this film when it came out was the depiction of Bruce Lee. That in that scene when he has a fight with Cliff Booth, is that he's he certainly comes across as a very arrogant person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, bigging himself up, that he's, you know, he says his fists are classed as lethal weapons, etc. I don't think that came across terribly well. I mean, yes, it's a real character, but it doesn't bother me too much. But again, I feel like people forget as well that, yes, Bruce Lee certainly doesn't come off great in that scene, but later you see him training Sharon Tate in these brief little segments later on, and they like sort of high five, and even though it's very brief, but that certainly shows him in a really great light, that he's willing to, like, I think he did that a lot with a lot of Hollywood actors in that time. But yeah, I think people forget that as well. So
yeah, I think Bruce Lee, that character is less of like a single character and more of, this is the way Hollywood actors act, this is how they behave, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they've got this reputation of being arrogant and thinking they're better than everyone else. You know, I mean, it worked for me. I thought it was fine.
Yeah.
I think some people may have been concerned about it being a little bit insensitive culturally, but I didn't mind it too much. There were much more offensive things going on in this film.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I didn't mind it too much. I know the family weren't best pleased, but like, they weren't there, and it's not exactly, they're not depicting real events either. So
yeah,
I mean, if they're dramatizing a particular moment in Bruce Lee's life, then fair enough, but it's not. So, and it's a very small part of the film, so
yeah,
it's not a big deal, I don't think.
I wasn't concerned.
No. But obviously, when this film was announced, and as I said at the top of the show, the concern going in was knowing that Margot Robbie was going to be playing Sharon Tate. And you immediately think, like, her brutal murder by the Manson family in 1969 is going to play a part in this film at some point. And so it immediately makes you uncomfortable about how Tarantino is going to approach her scenes. So, and I think that's the case for everyone, really. So it's interesting that a lot of her scenes are just showing her, like, going to the movies, watching her own film, The Wrecking Crew, with Dean Martin, dancing at the Playboy Mansion, and just generally having a nice, fun time with her friends. So you're always wondering how she's going to fit into this story. And other than the obvious in being like super tragic when she gets killed, but no, like, Tarantino changes history, which he sometimes tends to do with his films. So some of, you know, the Manson family get killed by Rick Dalton and Cliff Booth in the end, and Sharon lives. So the film feels like an attempt to redefine who she was, which was an actress, you know, and not just a statistic who was killed by the Manson family. Whether it's entirely successful, I'm still not so sure about that. As she has very little dialogue, and she's certainly third fiddle to DiCaprio and Brad Pitt. And it would have been certainly nice to see, at least, as I said, like, one more scene with her and DiCaprio's Rick Dalton, other than that short kind of conversation on her, like, gate telecom thing right at the end, which, you know, certainly is a scene I quite liked, but I feel like I would have wanted more of a meaty scene with her. And I kind of get why Tarantino sort of cut it and, you know, ended the film there, that Rick Dalton has finally got, like, as you said, Liz, his opportunity to actually be in, like, a huge film moving forward. But yeah, I think the film ultimately does a really interesting job in sort of changing the mindset of what we think about when we hear Sharon Tate, you know, that she was a genuine actress and did have a life in the 60s. And whereas before the film, like, when you hear the word Sharon Tate, you just think about the murders. So it's an attempt to, like, changed people's perspective and feeling about Sharon Tate, which I respect.
Going in, like I mentioned, I didn't know a lot about this film, and I didn't really know she was gonna be part of the film at all. And she's really not. Other than to be just like this normal person, essentially, that happens to be like in the spotlight. And I think for him to say it's like a movie that's about Sharon Tate and the Manson murders is a little bit misleading, because it's really just adjacent. He's kind of turned it into two separate stories, which I'm sure was kind of his point, to separate the two. But again, it's kind of just like a side quest in this film.
Yeah, I feel like I sort of wanted more of an intertwining of their stories of Cliff Booth and Sharon Tate, rather than just kind of leaving it right at the end. So I feel like it is a little bit of a missed opportunity there.
Yeah, she could have been much more. Like, they could have shown, like, they show her going to the movie theater and watching her movie, but they could have shown the making of that movie. Or, you know, and like maybe Rick Dalton and his stunt double could have been like on a movie set at the same time, and it goes like back and, you know, like he could have incorporated her more, but I think he did get his point across without doing that. So it's probably fine in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I guess so. I think it's not all like positive with the script with this film for me. Like, I think the film does drag a little when Rick and Cliff go to Italy, and like Kurt Russell becomes the narrator and he comes in and out with a voiceover. But I kind of did like these little bits in there. Like, I like the little scene where I think when they're filming the sort of James Bond ripoff, and there's like a car stunt that jumps between the bridge, like, and you
ding!
have a little yellow arrow saying Cliff. Very Tarantino, I think, that bit. That was fun. Other than that, you're just sort of waiting for the murder scene to happen. You're just kind of, when they go to the restaurants, you're like, okay, it's building up to it now. Are we going to get there? Yeah, so it does, you feel like Tarantino wants to fit this bit in, but it's just, it just feels like he has to do that piece of the story for Cliff and Rick.
Yeah.
But it's only really has to do it in like a montage scene. There's only other way.
Honestly, the way he like sets all of that up, it almost makes it seem like Cliff and Rick are going to have some kind of falling out. Like, that's where the story is going. So I was confused definitely towards the end when like that, nothing came of that, you know?
Yeah. There's that kind of sweet scene actually when Rick, I think they're on the set of one of the Westerns, and Rick's like talking to Cliff and he's like, dude, I'm married now. We're going to move to wherever. And like, I don't need you anymore. That was quite like, oh, that's sad. But other than that, like, it's just, it feels a bit draggy until you get to the end.
Definitely.
So, funny and interesting lines. I got a bunch. So, right at the top, during the trailer for Bounty Law, Rick Dalton says, "I'm looking at an ugly owl hoot about to get his jaw busted." It was a great one. And then when they have the interview, the interviewer's like, "Is that how you describe your job, Cliff? What, carrying his load?"
His load?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Anybody order fried sauerkraut?
Before he takes on the Nazis. Oh my gosh.
And again, another funny one. Straight after that, when he's testing the flamethrower. All right, that's 2 hearts. Anything we can do about the heat? Rick, it's a flamethrower.
It's a flamethrower.
I thought it was great.
Brad Pitt has a lot of really good one-liners.
Yeah.
In this one.
Yeah. Including "Don't cry in front of the Mexicans." Which is great. Oh, my hair's being old, buddy. Don't cry in front of the Mexicans.
Don't cry.
Here, put these on.
Yeah, put on the glasses.
There's a great one at the Playboy Mansion from Steve McQueen. The guy, I can't remember his name now, but the actor who plays Steve McQueen, he says, well, there's a girl next to him, and she says, Sharon absolutely had a type, cute, short, talented guys who look like 12-year-old boys. And McQueen says, yeah, I never stood a chance. Which is great as well.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you're Rick fucking Dalton. Don't you forget it.
Aww. That one's funny because I actually saw that was ad-libbed by Brad Pitt. And he said that early in his career, someone said that to him. And
really?
so he used that, which is, it's cute. I like that.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, he I feel like he always needs a reminder that, yeah, you are a movie star. You will be again.
Yeah.
One day, keep your chin up, dude.
Fake it till you make it. I mean, come on.
Yeah, definitely. A naughty one from Dakota Fanning when Brad Pitt's gets into the little house on the Spawn Ranch. And she says, you might have to shake him awake. I fucked his brains out this morning.
Yeah.
He may just, be tired.
So nonchalant. You're like, all right.
Yeah. And then towards the end from Austin Butler, when he's trying to, he's about to shoot, tries to shoot Brad Pitt. And Brad Pitt asks, obviously he's high on acid. And he says, are you real, right? I'm as real as a donut, motherfucker.
Oh my gosh.
But what my favorite one though, if I cover this film again, it might be different. But today I'm going with one that I didn't necessarily pick up on the first couple of viewings. I've seen this film quite a few times. But my favorite one is from Sam Wanamaker after Rick Dalton has finished his big climactic scene with the little girl, Trudy. He, throws her on the ground, and at the end of the scene, Sam Wanamaker's like, as he's just about to say cut, he's like, yeah, give me more. I don't know, what does he say? Give me evil, sexy Hamlet.
Hamlet, yes. That was
which is
good.
funny.
And in that scene as well, I like the line from the little girl where she goes, oh, I throw myself on the ground and cry just because sometimes.
Yeah. And I've got pads on. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Have you got any more lines you want to share, Liz?
I don't think so. You covered a lot of them.
Yeah, I wrote a lot down. Screenplay score for you? What are you going for?
I'm going to give it an 8.
Okay.
0.0. 8 flat. Yeah. Like you said, it's a very interesting storytelling method, and you can tell that he's put a lot of effort into this, but it's not there are some things that could have been better. He could have included Sharon Tate more, so we learn more about her instead of her just being this like Hollywood starlet kind of deal. Otherwise, though, I think he did a good job with the story and making it interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I find this script like really fascinating, really, because it's certainly not conventional at all. Certainly not like a lot of his other films. Like, it very much feels like a hangout film, and there's lots of sort of little mysteries here with Cliff Booth's character, and it's very much sort of, you're just watching these guys' careers trying to navigate through a changing Hollywood, and I just find that really interesting. And yet it's sort of mixed with, the Manson murders with non-fiction characters, in Cliff Booth and Rick Dalton, yet they feel so real. If no one knew anything about this movie, some people will be like, okay, I want to watch some Rick Dalton movies now.
Yeah.
Tarantino will probably be like, yep, I got you covered, but like...
Yeah, we're on it.
But if you go on the internet, you're like, oh, he was fake. Okay. Wow.
Yep.
So I just love, the level of detail in this is really great. And again, like, just he kind of goes off into tangents with Cliff Booth's backstory, and it just exudes a lot of confidence there. Yes, I think the inclusion of Sharon Tate, I think, could have been better. But again, I feel like you could be going into like a 3.5 hour runtime territory. I mean, I would watch that, but like, I don't know whether I feel like you would lose a lot of momentum with the other characters as well. So it's just a very difficult balancing act when you're attempting to like really try and change perceptions of what Sharon Tate was all about. So I think I'm going to go like an 8.7. Not his best script in the world. A very different script from him. And it's really funny as well. This film is kind of really funny. in as I said, in this kind of hangout sort of way. Because there are some scenes where you're literally just watching Tarantino and Brad Pitt just watching themselves on TV. Like it's Gogglebox episode. I don't know if you have Gogglebox in America, but it's a TV show in the UK where you're literally watching celebrities watch TV.
And there's like commenting.
Yeah. It's sort of a comedy show, but that's basically the concept.
That's pretty cool.
And I don't watch it myself, but like it's literally just feels like that sort of show sometimes. It's quite extraordinary, the confidence that Tarantino can write a scene like that of just these huge stars just watching themselves on TV. Yeah. So 8.7 for me. Right, acting then. Great dog acting, I must say.
That is the cutest dog.
Brandy. I love that
She's
little
precious.
sequence when Brad Pitt, where you see him in his little, what do you call it,
trailer RV, yeah.
And Brandy is like waiting very patiently to get his food, which is like rat flavored or something. And I love the fact that he licks his lips as it falls. And then, Brad Pitt clicks his finger. Oh, no, he does a clicking sound and then he goes straight for it. Yeah, great dog.
Very cute.
Yeah. So the reason I picked this film was because of DiCaprio's acting, really. And I really like the acting from him when he's in costume as Caleb DiCato, I think is how you say it, with a big mustache and dark brown leather jacket. And he has like a conversation with Julia Butters, who plays Trudy Fraser, who's 8 years old, reading reading a book about Walt Disney.
Yeah.
And she speaks so eloquently, like she's a real like accomplished actress. And she's in character like a method actor as well.
Yeah.
And there's like Rick reading a paperback little Western novel that's
hungover,
really thin. And as he describes this sad story, like DiCaprio stops himself from tearing up because the story is basically reflecting his own life. And he does it in such a way that it's quite funny as well to watch. But at the same time, you're just sad for him, but you can't help but laugh because he's being like comforted by a child as well.
Yeah.
And her reaction to being called like pumpkin puss is great, where like Julia's face just goes all cross.
She's like, I don't prefer that.
Yeah. Just that dynamic is just great to watch. I kind of wanted more scenes with those two. Then sort of like a lot later when Julia says that she just witnessed like the best acting she's ever seen. Of course she has. She's 8.
She's 8. Yeah.
DiCaprio gets like emotional again, but this time he's full of pride, but obviously etched with sadness too, as he's getting praise from an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
So it's just a really well thought out, subtle performance from DiCaprio that he's just this sad actor that's really just wants to get this role right. And he's just trying to please everyone. And the fact that he's just getting this incredible compliment from an actress who's 8 it really gets to him, and it's just quite sort of soul destroying when you think about it. Like, oh god, dude, pull yourself together.
In my research after I watched the film, I did some research into some more like behind the scenes information, and what's really interesting for me is a lot of the key like pivotal moments for Rick Dalton in this film are ad-libbed. So it was DiCaprio's idea to have Rick Dalton forget his lines and for him to have his like complete and total meltdown in his trailer afterwards. Like that was all DiCaprio. And that's like sheerly from him, one, having experience in the industry and knowing, what's going to work, but then also him just fully understanding these characters that he portrays and just wanting them to be perfectly portrayed on screen. I think that says a lot about him. And I thought it was incredible. What I really love about the acting in this film is that there are small parts that don't get as much screen time, but every single person was phenomenal. I mean, we have Sydney Sweeney's in this film.
Yeah, like when you watch this film again, you're like, half the Manson family are like huge stars now.
Yes. I mean, Austin Butler was fantastic in this film, and he's great in literally everything that he does.
Mickey Madsen,
top notch. I mean, Dakota Fanning being in this film is incredible. It's almost
Maya Hawke.
It almost gives me like Wes Anderson vibes. Not from like, it's obviously not a Wes Anderson film, but he gets these incredible casts for like nothing parts. You've got like 2 seconds on the screen and it's like Scarlett Johansson. You're like, what in the world just happened? But it was the acting was amazing. So incredible.
You must think that like Tarantino must have like an incredible eye for talent. Because half of the actors that are in the Manson family were not big stars at the time when this film came out. But now
Margaret Qualley,
huge. Yeah, Margaret Qualley as well. She's great. I loved The Substance, my favorite film of last year.
I haven't seen that one yet. I need to watch it.
Yeah, it might not be your favorite. I'll tell you now. You think this film was gory, Liz? The Substance turns it to 11 for sure.
That's crazy.
Yeah, you've mentioned it already, but I love the scene from DiCaprio where he forgets his lines on the Lancer episode, and he goes back to his trailer, and he's so mad at himself. And at first, he's almost in tears, then like super mad that he can't stop drinking and says, "That's fucking it. You stop drinking right now, all right? Make a promise to yourself. You're going to stop fucking drinking. Fuck it." And then just drinks a whiskey.
Yeah. He's like, I don't even like a whiskey sour.
And then just like chucks it out the door and then smashes a bottle. It's really funny physical performance for him. I loved it for me. In such a small space to work in as well. Yes, he's kind of aided by the fact that that scene is all kind of sort of cut together from that same shot. So it's not in like all, real time, but still like a really impressive performance there. Really, really funny. Again, like Brad Pitt obviously won his Oscar for this film. Really funny as well at the end before the Madsen family attacks. Like, he's great, like high on acid, I guess. Great acting of that. Not that I know how that should be, of course. Just saying that. It's a really good performance that you don't really know what to feel for him before they attack. Like, you don't know whether to feel like worried for him or if he's got everything under control.
Are you scared for him or scared of him?
Yeah. It's really kind of, you're really not sure where to stand with that. But one thing for sure is funny. When he's trying to remember Tex's name and he says, "You are," and then Austin Butler says, "I'm the devil and I'm here to do the devil's business." No, it was dumber than that.
Yeah.
Something like Rex, and then Mickey Madsen says, "Tex, fuck him up," or something, and it's like, it's Tex. There you go.
It's really interesting
really
that Brad Pitt got an Oscar for this film because his performance for me wasn't like a standout. I think it was great. But there were so many other roles that I would have picked ahead of his, but like, I mean, good for him.
Yeah.
He deserves it. He's been in some amazing stuff, but it's interesting that this is the film that he got it for.
Yeah, it does feel like it was sort of, I don't know, maybe sort of his turn kind of of an Oscar win. Sort of like with like DiCaprio as well when he won an Oscar, because I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the fact that he literally suffered big time in The Revenant. He's like, please give me an Oscar. Okay, you nearly died. Here you go.
Here you go. Yeah.
But yeah, it's certainly very much an understated performance from Brad Pitt, and it's a funny one as well. Like, both guys are really funny, and they work really well together. Their chemistry is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But my favorite performance, I think, again, is Leonardo DiCaprio, because you just don't see him like this very often at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just basically the reason why I picked this for this podcast, is because it's must have been quite a challenge for him, like trying to really be very nuanced in this for this character, to try and portray a actor that's on the decline when himself has never been in decline.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's always been an A-lister, whereas Rick Dalton is not that at all. So I just find that's a really interesting. It's just really interesting work from DiCaprio that I feel like it's just pitch perfect from him.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really watchable. Yeah, I'll find myself watching this time and again, I think, for sure. Obviously not for yourself, but it's okay.
It's okay. Yeah, I think DiCaprio's the obvious pick.
Yeah.
For standout performance, but my favorite was all of those small parts.
Yeah.
Just because, like, especially Austin Butler, I think he rocked the part of Tex, and he, like, you almost don't even like realize it's Austin Butler, which I think is kind of the point.
And Dakota Fanning was kind of scary as well.
I love Dakota Fanning. I think she's so underrated. I think she's fantastic.
So, acting score for you, Liz, what are you going for?
I'm going to give it a 9.5.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like I said, I think they were cast perfectly. I think there's so many amazing performances in this, like literally from like extras to like all the way up to the star of the show. Everyone was so good. And yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed the performances.
Yeah, I think I will match you with that, with a 9.5. I think this is what you ultimately come for this film, is the acting. You know, Brad Pitt and DiCaprio, they're right. I wouldn't say it's like the best performances that they've ever done, but it's definitely right up there with their careers. When you look back, yeah, as you say, all the small parts are fantastic. Yeah, and you know, Margot Robbie is doing what she's asked to do. You know, you can't really criticize too much for what she's doing compared to everyone else. So yeah, I think that's a fair score. I think really exceptional from those two, because you don't really, certainly from DiCaprio, you don't really expect this type of performance from him. And I think you're probably going to get more of that as well with like one battle after another as well. So yeah, excited for that. Right, let's add up the scores then for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood gets a very impressive 53.2.
Wow.
Which wins this episode, whereas The Great Gatsby only gets 49 points.
Still a great score.
And I get a win on the board. Yeah, it's still a good score. Right, next episode, as The Running Man is out in the cinemas, we'll be talking Stephen King adaptations 2, as we have done one in the past, which was The Shining versus The Mist. So do check that one out. And I will be joined by Matt from the Matt and Mark movie show, who is currently second on the League of Podcasts as well. And he's not happy about it, as he was number one for a while. So I suspect he's very eager to get that number one spot again. Liz, you have been amazing as always. Thank you so much for coming on again. I really do appreciate it. Always a lot of fun talking movies with you. This is your opportunity again to tell us about your Insta page.
Sure. So, like Martin said at the beginning, it's at Liz in a Movie. I've got fun facts. I post like random movie things that come across my feed. And then you can also follow me on Letterboxd if you're interested. I have weird taste in music in movies, kind of like we all do. So if you want to see what I think, you can follow me on Letterboxd at Liz by the Bay.
Cool. Right, it's time to say goodbye, people. It's got goodbye from Liz. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. I'm going to have a good deep dive into 1960s movies and see if Rick Dalton comes up again. Bye-bye. That's it for part 2. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out part 1 if you haven't done so already. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell me what your favourite films are relating to the episodes. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast, for X at FVF_podcast. Plus, we are now on YouTube, so hit that like button and comment there. If you do, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off.